we activated the Dallas equivalent of the bat signal this morning. We got him out of bed, forced him to sing for his breakfast. Jason Garrett, former Cowboys coach, helping us understand the news of the day so far. George Pickens, soon to be traded from Pittsburgh to Dallas. First, Coach, good morning. And second, let's get right into it. What's your reaction when you hear that Jerry's bringing George Pickens to town?
No, let's get right into it. Let's set the record straight. We've already done the run. We've already done the lift. We've been out with the dog. So this idea that I've been sleeping, let's go.
Yes, I love it.
Come on, Simsy. Kidding me? I think it's a great trade for Dallas. I really do. If you look at their team, I think they got a lot of good weapons. And for me, the whole thing works because of the quarterback. Dak can work with anybody. He'll bring the best out in everybody. But if you think about them breaking the huddle now, Pickens goes and plays the X receiver. You move CD Lamb around. He can be your F, your inside guy. He can be your Z. He's going to be your motion guy. He's so good at that. Love the tight end. They're building the offensive line. There's a lot of really good things going on. But again, for me, it always goes back to Dak. He's the guy that's going to run the show. He's going to make all the different pieces work together for them. And I think they have the right mentality. They're trying to reestablish the line of scrimmage, run the football. They've used a lot of resources up front. And so when you do that and you add some weapons outside, those weapons are going to get a lot of single coverage, and Pickens and Lamb can take advantage of it.
First off, I'm glid you set the record straight. I know. I meir you're a ex-head coach in the NFL, Mike. They're up early. They don't even know what to do with themselves. So I know he was up training, getting after it. I'm with you, JG, in the fact that Dallas has got sneaky talent. I kind of was just saying that to Mike on both sides of the ball, where you go, I think people are sleeping on them a little bit. But the thing I ask you, right, there's all the questions with George Pickens and the personality and the contract and, oh, no, Pittsburgh can't handle him. How do you think, I don't think anybody could talk about this person better than you, how do you think Jerry Jones views it, getting him in? We'll deal with the personality and some of the things that have been, talked about off the field as a distraction a little bit.
Well, I want to get to that, but I want to say something quickly.
Yeah.
What you said at the outset, sneaky talent. In Dallas, it's a high-profile organization. So what happens is everybody goes to the extreme. When they're really good, they have the best talent on the planet. No team has ever been – it's the greatest collection of players in the history. Because they're on TV, national TV, 13 out of 16 weeks. Everybody goes to the Pro Bowl, all of that. So it gets extreme that way. And then when they lose, they got nobody. And like a lot of things in life, it's in the middle. It's not quite as extreme when it's really good, and it's certainly not as bad as people are making it seem. If you just pull back and say, what do they have there? There are good pieces, and it starts with the quarterback. I do think the running back thing is still a question for them, but they're a talented team. They're not the most talented team in the league, but they're certainly not the least talented team. There's a lot to work with there. In regards to the Jerry question, this is the kind of guy that Jerry Jones loves. Jerry Jones loves the George Pickens. He loves the guy who's talented, maybe troubled somewhere else. We can try to create the right environment for him and get the most out of him. That's why the Cowboys through the years have picked a lot of guys that were deemed to be first-round talent in the second round. Maybe they had an injury. Maybe they had a character flaw. Let's give this guy a chance and see if we can get the best out of him. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't. I think a lot has to do with the environment around the guy at the time. I felt like when I was the head coach there, we drafted a lot of really, really good players who are also great people. Tyron Smith, Travis Frederick, Zach Martin, Dak Prescott, these kinds of guys, they could help you absorb maybe a couple of these guys that weren't quite the character guy that you want. They weren't the Boy Scout necessarily. But when you have a lot of other great people around them who kind of show them the way, they stick out like a sore thumb if they start doing the other stuff. And oftentimes that can help them change their ways. So I think Jerry's probably feels like this is an environment where they can do that. And they see the talent and they see how we can help the offense. So they say, let's take a shot.
There's a wrinkle here, though, Coach, I'm fascinated by, because we've seen a history of the Pittsburgh Steelers trading away malcontent receivers and it not necessarily working out for the new team. And those are guys where, for the most part, Mike Tomlin was able to keep things under control. With Pickens, there have been flashes, and Tomlin at times has been beside himself. If you're in the room with Jerry for something like this, so you're pointing out, hey, look, Tomlin's the master at keeping these guys on the right track, and we've seen some wobbling here with George Pickens. We may be getting ourselves into a potential problem with this guy.
That's why it goes back to the quarterback for me, because the quarterback's the guy who has to develop the relationship with. He's the guy who's going to spend the most time with. And so he understands. Pickens knows that if I develop a relationship with Dak, he's going to throw me the ball. I'm going to have a lot of success, all of that. And I think Dak fully understands that. And I think that's the key relationship here. Ownership, organizational structure, head coach, very important, obviously. But if you can take the next step and you have an established quarterback, I think that helps it. It helps that guy be less malcontented, if you will. And in Pittsburgh, when he's been there, the quarterback situation's been up in the air.
Right.
I don't think they'd have the same issues if Ben Roethlisberger was the quarterback. Antonio Brown had a lot of good years there, and a lot of that had to do with Roethlisberger's presence, and I think the same thing can happen in Dallas with Dak.
Yeah, well said there, JG. You're right. I mean, Dak Prescott is a franchise quarterback. It's different than what's been there in Pittsburgh. You know that you got a real commander leader that way. But to you too, and I know we both love Dak Prescott, his leadership, what he does. Could you speak a little specifically, a little bit how Dak does lead guys and what he might do to kind of get CeeDee Lamb as a part of the group and buy into what they're doing as a football team?
Simsy, I learned so much from Dak his rookie year. And I don't know if you remember, it was 2016. And, Tony Romo was going to be our quarterback. We were excited about that. But we had drafted Dak in the 4th round. And the idea was that we feel like he has the traits to be our future quarterback. I personally thought the transition might be challenging for him because he had come from a gun offense and did a lot of quarterback run, which wasn't what we were doing. But we found out early on that he was picking things up. He was an incredibly coachable guy. But then he gets the opportunity to play because Tony gets hurt. Kellen Moore was another one of our backups. He got hurt. So Dak's thrust into it. And it was amazing how well the team responded to him. And I asked him about it halfway through the season. I think we were 9-1 at the time. And I had him in my office. I said, how are you doing this? I mean, how are you getting these guys to play for you? As a rookie, it's hard to do. You got a lot of established players, Pro Bowl players that you're playing with, and they're just so receptive to your leadership. And he said, I can't stand there and make some kind of a speech or be out in front, but what I can do is develop relationships with guys. And so he would be in the locker room. They would play hamper basketball till all hours of the night. It would be, we're going to practice, we're going to watch film, we'll do our meetings, we'll do all that. And then 2 hours later, we're in a staff meeting upstairs and you hear these guys hooting and hollering. I go downstairs, there's 20 guys in the locker room playing hamper basketball and Prescott's leading it all, So it's that kind of stuff where he develops one-on-one relationships. They get to know each other. And when you do that, as Michael Irvin told me many, many years ago, you have a voice. And that's what you want in life. You want to have a voice. So it's time spent, and he understands how to do that. He does as well as anybody I've been around.
The Cowboys have created plenty of interest and drama in recent years with how they handle their quarterbacks, from Dak to CeeDee Lamb, now Micah Parsons, with the contract specifically. With George Pickens coming to town, he's in a contract year. He's going to want to be paid. He's possibly already tried to get paid by the Steelers. How do you think Jerry is going to handle this one, given that Micah is the one who is in the batter's box waiting for the pitch from Jerry?
It certainly seems like the Cowboys contract situations get more attention than anybody in the league, don't they? I mean, we're waiting on Dak's contract, then CDs, and then Micah's and all of that. So, hopefully some lessons have been learned that you can make some preemptive strikes here and try to sign these guys earlier rather than later, because the market's only going up. I do think they have to see how he fits in. I do think they have to see how he plays before they say, oh, let's sign George Pickens to some sort of a long-term deal. I don't think that's in the plans right away, but I do think he's a good fit. There's no doubt from a contract standpoint, Mike is the priority. So I think all the eggs are going into that basket. But, George Pickens is a young player, and the combination of two receivers like Pickens and CeeDee Lamb, that can be a lethal combination. So if it starts to fit, it starts to look right, my advice is get ahead of it.
Yeah, that's right. They've definitely dragged their feet a few too many times. Another thing for me that I'm interested just to hear your perspective, JG, a little of, we know head coaches, offensive coordinators, you got to be a salesman every now and then, right? You remember John Gruden used to say to that to us back in the day every now and then. How would you sell as the head coach, right, to Pickens and CeeDee Lamb when they first get there? Hey, like, listen, there's enough to go around here. Everybody's gonna get fed. How would you go about that to kind of massage the egos to get this thing going in the right direction?
Well, the best teams we've all been on, each of the component parts and individual players make each other better. And the best teams I've been on were the Cowboys Super Bowl teams in the early 90s. And I've said this a million times. The offensive line made the runner better. The runner made the line better. The runner made the quarterback better. The quarterback made the runner better. They all made the receivers better because there were 9 guys on the line of scrimmage. So, I think you have to talk to the guys about that. And ultimately, when we all do our part and we all complement each other and we all make each other better, the spoils will come to everybody because we'll be winning. And I do think Philadelphia is a good example of that this past year. I think everybody bought into that idea that we're all going to make each other better. We all need each other. And we might not all have these gaudy statistics where we're catching 110 balls, but I'd rather catch 80 for 1,100 and 10 touchdowns and go win the NFC East and go have a chance to go to the NFC Championship game than catch 110
right.
and not have those same opportunities. So, I don't like the word salesman. I believe in the word preaching. It's something that you preach as a coach every single day. And the best coaches I've been around preached it a lot and everybody bought into it. The issue, though, is you have to win. Because if you're not winning and you're preaching this and everybody's being selfless and sharing and doing all that and you're not having the success, all of a sudden it becomes a harder thing to sell and to preach. So I do think they'll all make each other better. The biggest part of this thing is when one guy gets attention, if they're all giving CeeDee Lamb attention, that guy over there, Pickens, he's going to be by himself. Right. And now you got to earn it. It's one-on-one. And conversely, if they're rolling over there, CeeDee's going to be by himself. And that's why it's so important to run the football. Because if you can run the ball, all of a sudden, all these opportunities open up for these guys. So it all fits together, but I do think it's important to preach the right things about team. It's not about your individual statistics, it's about us winning. And if you got the right kind of guys, that's an easier thing to preach.
Coach, can't tell you how much we appreciate not you getting out of bed early, but interrupting your very busy U.S. Marine-like 3 a.m. schedule to make some time to talk to us knuckleheads.
You're kidding me? I was doing a little lap pull down, and my phone buzzed. I said, I got to get on with Florio and Sim.
I like it. And if you don't mind, I'm going to start calling you Preacher Garrett, if you don't mind. After this segment, you're Preacher Jason from here on out.
Okay, trust me. That's what we do.
All right. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.